Hey everybody, Scott Mann here with another Touch Designer Stable Diffusion integration. This one is another Comfy UI Touch Designer integration. You may have seen the Stream Diffusion one. Stream Diffusion is awesome and super exciting, but the quality of the imagery that you get out of Comfy UI is still way higher. And you can do a lot more with like modern models. You can get Flux models working in here and all kinds of stuff. So Comfy UI is still definitely very relevant. I'm going to show you how to make this like kind of trippy, abstract moon and ocean based installation that just generates a new painting every 15 seconds or so, and it's very fun. Without further ado, let's get right in there and check it out. Okay, so apologies in advance to people who aren't working on Windows and who don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, because this is really for those people. That's what I'm running, and I don't really know how to get it working on a different type of system because I don't have one. I know that it can be done. An NVIDIA graphics card, mine is a 3090. Not the latest and greatest, and it still runs great. It can run on other systems. It's probably a little slower. If you're really serious about doing this, you might want to think about figuring out how to get your hands on an NVIDIA system on a Windows or even just a laptop with an NVIDIA card. That being said, if you're on a Mac or you're on you have a different graphics card, you can get Comfy UI running. I just am not going to explain to you how to do it in this tutorial, but you can pick up the second half of this tutorial after the Comfy UI install and everything and follow along with the Comfy TD operator. So I hope that's helpful. Anyway, I've given you a link directly to what is called the Comfy UI Portable. And here's that. And it should just kick open the download for you right here. It's really on the same page as the Comfy UI Hugging Face server, and it's like if you scroll down, where is it? Manual install Windows Portable. This is where I got it from. But you can just click that link and it'll give you a direct download. Doesn't take too terribly long to download. The other thing that I did was provided the model that I used for this. So there's a link to the download of Dreamshaper 8, and that should just pop the download for you. I just pasted it in and it worked. This is pretty big. Dreamshaper 8 pruned. It's a slightly pruned model so that it will run faster. I think you can find an unpruned model, which will theoretically give you better imagery, but be a little slower. This one works great. I recommend it. You've got the Comfy UI Windows Portable folder and one model, and that is all you need to run this Comfy UI network. So let's take a look. Once you've downloaded these things, you are going to unpack the portable. Okay, I've already done that. I'm just working out of my downloads folder so that I know that just this basic stuff is working. But this is not how I typically work, obviously. But so follow this carefully. In your Comfy UI Windows Portable NVIDIA folder, go in there, open that up. Open Comfy UI. Let's sort by name. Models. Checkpoints. Okay, this is where your Dreamshaper 8 pruned.safe tensors file needs to go. Okay. So let's chase it down one more time. You go find wherever you can move your portable folder. That's what's nice about it. You can move this to a drive. You don't need to just like work out of your downloads folder, obviously. Comfy UI, Comfy UI, Comfy UI into models, checkpoints. And in this folder is where you're going to go you're going to find the download of that Dreamshaper model. which is right here in my downloads, and just like drag it in there. Okay, I don't need to do this again, obviously, but that's what it should look like. Once you've done that, let me make sure I got nothing else. No, that looks fine. Once you've done that, go back to your ComfyUI Windows Portable NVIDIA folder. Go inside of that. And when you can see the ComfyUI folder here, just double click Run NVIDIA GPU. No, wrong. Sorry. Run NVIDIA GPU.bat. That's what you want. Run NVIDIA GPU.bat. So kick that open. This is going to kick open Stable Diffusion, basically. This is sort of running kind of in the back alleys of your computer, and then ComfyUI, which is actually just an interface. ComfyUI is not really running yet. This is not ComfyUI. This is ComfyUI. And this is the network I'm going to show you how to build real quick. It's super simple. So let me just delete this network and start it from scratch so you can build it. I'll also just post the JSON file of it if you really want to be a cheater. God knows I like doing that, but I'll also just build it together with you real quick. So here we go. You're going to load a checkpoint. A checkpoint is a model, which is sort of the brains of the operation. The model is what gets trained on tons and tons and tons of imagery, and it has a personality. Some are really good at generating art. Some are really good at generating watercolors. Some are trained only on photography. This one is kind of a mix of things, but it tends to be creative and create interesting artwork, which is what I'm into. So that's what I'm using it for. But there are thousands of models to choose from, and you can go on Civet AI right now and find models that you like and load them in here and then load those into Touch Designer. So you are not beholden, obviously, to using this model. I just happen to like it. So there's my load checkpoint with the Dream file, Dream Shaper model in it. I'm double clicking on the background, by the way, to get this node loader up. I'm going to search for K sampler. Just the simple one is fine. I'm going to plug the model into it. Okay, so the K sampler is where the diffusion actually happens, and we'll go over what these parameters mean in a second. I'm going to now, I typed in clip for clip text encode. This is where my prompt goes. I'm going to copy that and paste it with just my typical Command C, Command V. And I'm going to hook up the clip path into those two nodes. Okay, so this is going to be my positive prompt up here. I'm just going to say cute. I was going to say dog, but actually let's do cute house plant with big teeth, just to, I don't know, have a little fun. I'm going to say NSFW and nudity in here. This is my negative prompt. We don't want any of that nudity in here because they're such prudes. At the HQ, I'm going to put in a load image. I just typed in LO, load image. Oh, good. It's already got the image that I've been using. I just put in to my AI generator generic headshot of a young man or something. And this is what it did for me. So I'm just using this as an example. And then what's nice about Comfy is that figure out what is needed a lot of times just by dragging off of a node, like right here, this image. Well, what should I put into the, now, one of the few things I can do with this is VAE encode. So you can also just say VAE encode like that, but I need a VAE encoder. And this is basically, I'm going to feed ComfyUI an image because in Touch Designer, you can do just text to image, but it's nice to be able to feed it a outline or some sort of template that you want to use. So that's why I'm including an input image here, and I'm going to plug that into the latent image. Oftentimes you'll find that this is just an empty latent, which basically just gives it a resolution. It's going to derive its resolution from whatever you plug into it. And this becomes relevant when we drop this network into Touch Designer, because this is going to become sort of the dead end for our input, right? So now the only other thing I have to hook up is the VAE to the VAE encode. The VAE encode needs a VAE encoder, and this model has a VAE encoder, variational auto encoder, already built into it. And basically what this actually does, just if you're curious, is lower the resolution a lot. The AI tends to work at a low resolution, then do its creativity, and then blow the resolution back up. Anyway, so VAE, then we need a VAE decoder, and that also needs the VAE model plugged into it. Okay, so all I did was drag off of this and say VAE decode, right? And now I have an image here. I'm gonna take that image. Let's do save image, even though this is going to like fill up your Comfy UI folder. I can show you where your images go. So this should be a working network. I'm going to try to run it here. Boom. Everybody's happy. And there is my plant with nasty teeth. House plant with nasty teeth. Okay. So I just want to talk about the network a little bit while we're in here. So this is my my input image, and because I'm telling it to denoise fully, the value of 1, it's basically ignoring this image. All it's getting from this image is the resolution. Now, if I turn that down to 0.5 and change absolutely nothing else, okay, so now I'm telling it denoise 0.5, just run that so you can see. I don't actually know what's gonna happen. Oh, there's our house plant. Okay, so this denoise, it's a little bit of a misnomer. This is like, how much do you want me to deviate from your input image is kind of what we're asking it here. Okay, so if I say 0.1, that's going to be virtually indistinguishable. It's not indistinguishable totally, right? It's a different image, but it's pretty similar. What you're doing when you tell it to denoise is to add noise and then pull the noise out. So if you only add a little bit of noise and then pull a little bit of noise out, you're just like giving it a little rinse, you know, based on your prompt. But it's funny because like it doesn't have enough to work with to get it to a cute houseplant with big teeth. I'm actually going to move over to the prompt. Now this prompt I actually worked on for a while, and prompting is a real big part of this, which I won't go in too deep into. There's a lot of stuff about it you can read about, but like changing the ordering of words in your prompt can change the way your model behaves. Okay, so I'm going to paste in here, beautiful masterpiece 3D modern, conceptual, colorful, abstract oil painting that depicts symbols of fear, strength, uncertainty, longing, composed by the ocean out of the land. Now, I know that's like a weird mouthful. I just chipped away at it and changed some things. I don't want to go too deep into this because there's so many tangents we could go on to, but fiddle with your prompting when you have your idea, try different word combinations. Maybe ChatGPT can help you out. This ended up getting the look that I kind of had in mind, okay? So it's gonna create an abstract painting with some human emotion undertones, and it's gonna have some like landscape, ocean and land in the visual, right? So if I tell it denoise 0.1, same thing, it doesn't do anything, okay? If I go take it up to 0.5 and I run it, okay, it's starting to look weird, and it kind of became a woman with like, I don't know, an insect on her face maybe. If I said, you know, ancient wizard, let's try that. It should just kind of give me the same. Well, now, That doesn't really look like much of an ancient wizard. But if I cranked the denoise a little more, which maybe I'm saying like, work harder, push it further away from the input image. Let's see what that does. Oh, okay, now that's maybe too far. It doesn't even have the same like framing and posing as this. There, that's, you know, getting somewhere. And there are ways of doing this more accurately with control nets and whatever. I don't want to get into any of that, but just to give you the basic idea of how to feed something in and get an output. You're not going to start, you start to deviate from your input, at least with this model, when you hit 0.7. And then very small increments above 0.7 start to really radically change things. That was 0.8. And if I go to 0.9, I mean, basically now you're seeing almost none of the input. It looks like it kind of, yeah, I got the basic concept of it. Steps. What are steps? Steps are like brush strokes. How many times does the diffuser go in and work on the painting? It's different from denoise. Denoise and steps kind of work together, but if denoise is set to 0.1, it doesn't really matter. I could put in 60 steps here and it would not really make that much of a difference. Right? So that's 60 steps, and you know, this is versus 10 steps. Almost identical, right? So let's go back up to full denoise. So now I'm basically just setting it. I'm going to tell it 1 step. That's kind of what the noise system looks like. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it'll let me do 0 steps, but maybe it will. No, it won't. Okay. Here's 5 steps. Okay, not looking that good, actually. This is not tracking the way earlier tests did. Don't know why. Okay, with a mere 8 steps, I can get a pretty darn good image, right? And this is not even that high resolution. At a higher resolution, it would do more interesting things. If I tell it 20 steps, there's 20 steps. Totally different image, right? Is it better? I don't know. What happens if I do 15? So at some point between 12 and 15, it completely radically changes. Now, I generally think somewhere between 10 and 30 steps is right. I've gone up to 60, but I don't know. I want to keep this moving fast. I'm going to leave it at 20 steps. If it's not running that fast for you, then you could do fewer steps. Steps take time. And let's leave this at increment or randomized. CFG, we're going to leave it at 8. That's the amount that it should adhere to your prompt. So if I tell this 2, then it's going to be more creative and imaginative. And this is interesting to play with. I mean, sometimes if you turn CFG down, it can get a little crazier and wilder and do more creative things. And it seems to improve the quality of your imagery, but it kind of ignores your prompt if you go down that low. So I like to leave it at 8 so I have some consistency in the imagery. The sampler name is Euler and the scheduler is normal. We won't go into that. That's sort of part of the model apparatus. And we're going to set denoise to 0.8 because that's what we're going to end up with in Touch Designer. So those are your parameters here. And then what you're going to do is go to Workflow, Save As, and we'll call this First Comfy TD. I think I've already have a couple dummies in there. I'm going to call it 3, but you can name it whatever you want. First Comfy TD3, confirm, okay? And bewilderingly, that is going to end up in your Comfy UI folder. Sorry, I did that a little too fast. You go to your Comfy UI Windows Portable NVIDIA, Comfy UI Windows Portable, Comfy UI, and then you go to User, Default, Workflows. And why don't you grab your workflows and stick it out here so you can get to it. So that's where it saved it. You can't change this. That's where it is, okay? Comfy UI user default workflows. You're going to need access to this file. So now we're going to close down Comfy UI. We don't need it anymore. I thought I did save it. Workflow, save. Okay, bye. Okay, leave, whatever. I'm going to kill Comfy UI running in the background for now so I can relaunch it just to make sure it's running from the right place. And now I'm going to launch Touch Designer. We haven't even downloaded the Tox yet, have we? Okay, so let's delete these guys. Now, the first operator we need is the operator that is the fancy operator from .simulate. The way you're going to get that is type in .simulate Patreon, which I apparently have done many times. And here it is. And yes, it is behind a paywall. It's $5 for this, but you could join and download the Tox and then leave. But this is a great community with lots of interesting folks on it doing interesting things. If you're interested in this type of work, join for $5 a month. That'll give you access to his Discord server. And the Discord server looks like this. This is the only way to do it. So yes, you have to get Discord set up and working. If you don't and have never used it, I'm sorry, but that's just, I don't know, life online, I guess. Once you're a member of the Discord server, you can get in and download the Tox file. So this is the dot server, and then you see download Tox right here. There's a whole bunch of sections in the server. Where is it? Download. Oh, I had to open that. There's the Stream Diffusion, and here's Comfy TD, and scroll down to the bottom, and there it is, Comfy TD 0.2.5 Tox. I can't post the file for you because it's proprietary, and it's worth every penny that you pay for it. This is an amazing tool if you need this. I don't know another way of doing it. You download this guy right here, boom, takes 2 seconds, and here is your brand new your downloads, brand new Comfy UI window, downloads, where is it? Here it is, Comfy TD 2.5. Drag that into your Touch Designer network. Okay, where are you? Oops, there it is. Boom. Got it in here. Is it working yet? No, it's not. It's totally empty. Okay. This is the Comfy TD Tox file. This is all the stuff that you can see inside of it that you don't understand and don't need to, but that's what's inside. First thing to do is to tell it where your Comfy UI base folder is. Okay. So you got to go out back into your Explorer, your Finder, if you're on a Mac, and find your Comfy. Is this the right one? I've got so many versions of this. Let me see here. Checkpoints. Yes, it's the right one. Okay. You find where your Comfy UI folder is, and that the one that is just called Comfy UI, not Windows Portable or whatever. You drag that one into the Comfy UI base folder parameter here, and that tells Touch Designer how to get into Stable Diffusion. We actually aren't using, interestingly, the actual UI itself, but I'll get into that in a second. So now that it knows where your Comfy UI folder is, you're going to go to config, and you've got to find that work file, that workflow. So hopefully you put this on your dock. If not, it's in Comfy UI user default workflows. Here's your workflow. It's a .json file, and that needs to go into the workflow config field parameter. Okay. So basically what we're doing is we're giving the services of Stable Diffusion to Touch Designer via the setup parameter, the Comfy UI base folder parameter, and this is the network, the little network that we just made. And now we're going to load the network just directly into Touch Designer, and Touch Designer is going to use that network to talk to Stable Diffusion in the background. Once the workflow is in the workflow config, then it looks like you need to actually launch Comfy UI, which is, I don't remember that part, but launch Comfy UI, and you should, don't click it a bunch of times. You should see it, if you Alt-Tab, you should see it running in the background. So it's starting up the server. So we've got to wait till the server starts, and then you'll be able to see in here if it's happily talking to Comfy. Is that Comfy? Is that talking? Starting server. Let's see. Might actually be talking at this point. Okay, yeah, it's receiving my prompts. Okay, sorry for the confusion. Once we got Comfy UI kicked open in the background, I can actually see what nodes are available here. So we're going to go back to the config page and try this again. Update API parameters. So now the configuration is synced. And I find that to get all the data in, I have to toggle this. There it is. Okay. So I just turned this off and turned it back on. And now it pulled my Comfy UI workflow right into this talks. It's now loaded into Touch Designer. We don't need to go through Comfy UI anymore. We're not talking through the Comfy UI network. We build the Comfy UI network and load it into Touch. And then I'm going to tell it toggle all configs to turn them on. Okay, still on config page. And now up at the top here, you see how it says 11 mismatches? Update API parameters. It needs to now that it knows what parameters you want to be able to modify from within Touch Designer, you've got to pulse this and it syncs the configuration into your settings here. It's a little confusing how this is set up, but there's just a lot of things to have, so it needs to be spread out on separate pages. So now you can kind of recognize your Comfy network in here, right? I've even got my prompt, but you could change your prompt from within Touch Designer, okay? Let's see what happens if I try to generate something. Got an error. Okay, so when you get an error, you can look in this. 400 client error is kind of typical. Look at the back end and see what it's saying. Okay, so it says failed to validate prompt for output 40, load image 36. And the 36 is referring to the node number. So you can actually go back into your, I think I closed Comfy already. I did. But there's a problem. Oh, it's the load image node. And the problem is that there's no parameter in here, right, for the image. Now, the load image node had an image that it was talking to, but it doesn't actually get that data up in here for you. So I'm just going to start with a little movie file into a null. I'm going to call this null Stable Diffusion, and I'm going to drag that null right into there, and I'm going to try my generate again. And seems like something is happening now. And okay, so I've got my abstract art prompt is still in there. Let's take a look. Okay, and looks like 1280 by 720 is actually the resolution I'm going to be working at here. Now, one thing you can notice is that even inside Touch Designer, it knows how to randomize. It's randomizing the value, anything with EED. So it's looking for any seed values and randomizing them. So if I pulse again, it just randomizes the seed and gives me a new look here, right? Let me just try sending it a noise here. So this is just sort of like Make me whatever. Finished. I don't see a finished. Oh, okay. That reminds me. Here's one other setting that you really need to get. This has wasted an hour or two of my life. Display last really ought to just be on. Okay. This is a super low res noise. So I got a super low res image. But if I sent it, you know, let's send it a different period, and I gave it a little higher resolution to work with. Let's go 1024 by 1024. Settings, generate. That'll give me something a little more interesting. Now again, you can kind of see that it sees where these contours are, even though I've got denoise set to 1. But it's largely just like kind of taking general cues from this. If I want this to really be manifest in my output image, I really need to set this denoise to like 0.8. But hey, we've got our thing up and running in Touch Designer. At this point, you could, if you aren't interested in doing my installation, like you've got it running and you're off to the races. I'm going to just keep going here and showing you kind of some ins and outs of how to maybe set up a basic installation and some different things to think about when you're feeding Stable Diffusion from inside of Touch Designer. First things first, I'm just going to send it some noise. Okay. Let's use a better resolution. What was the 1280 by 720? And I'm going to turn off monochrome. And I still have my same beautiful MasterProduce 3D abstract prompt in there. I'm going to tell it to generate an image. Okay. So you can see the similarities here, I think. Right? I've got denoise set to 0.8. If I come down to 0.6, let's just pulse one. You know, you can kind of see it manifesting in there. It's adding its own noise. And one thing to keep in mind is that the noise that it adds in addition to the noise that I'm feeding it right now is really specially tuned to make Stable Diffusion work better. I have found that noise, even feeding it in Touch Designer, really matters. Like, let me just turn down the period of this noise. I'm going to crank this up to like 0.9. Because I want to allow Stable Diffusion to use its own noise as well. But if I generate this image, what's going to happen is that there's going to be an intense like granularity of detail that this image gets. Okay, if I turn this period way up and I pulse this, then you're going to see much broader strokes. Now, obviously, it gave me some detail in here, but if I turned my denoiser down to 0.8, did this one again, kind of see what I mean. And what I have found is that a mix of high frequency granular noise and low or high period, less granular noise gives you much better results. And so one sort of rudimentary way of doing this, I'm going to just set this to the resolution I'm using here, is to make a noise and then drop a level and in the level, just invert. So now you have a perfect inversion, right, of a noise and the anti-noise, right? The blacks and whites are perfectly opposite each other, as are the grays. And then add another noise, Okay, and this is going to go into here, and you're going to say the output is going to be input times noise. And this noise is going to be, let's monochrome it. And so now that's what this looks like. And we're going to make this be kind of a super granular noise, like that. Okay. And then this one, same as this. I'm just going to copy and paste that noise, plug that in here. And then I'm going to add these guys together. Okay, so now I've got one noise is the complement of the other. If I change the period of this one, you can see that now I've got like areas of detail and areas of less detail. And this just makes for better imagery. I'm going to crank that one. Okay, still got it cooking pretty quick here. I'm going to view this. Let's view this. Okay. So I'm still telling it to push off of my input image pretty hard. Ooh, there's a little crucifix floating in here. That's interesting. But you'll see it like creates some broader trends and then gives you some detail in addition to that. You can also like colorize this noise separately and multiply it. Like I've made some pretty crazy advanced noise systems that really helped me kind of define what the final output was going to look and feel like. I mean, one good trick is to just say, hey, let's convert this into monochrome like this. And then give it its own color palette. Okay, so I'm going to drop a lookup in here and then a ramp. Okay, this should be a familiar trick, but maybe it's not for everybody. So in my ramp keys, for this one, I'm going to just put, let's say, a dark blue for this key, make it real saturated. For my middle key, I'm going to go with like a light blue. Saturate it, and then the last one I'm going to go in for like a kind of a darkish green for now. And so what this is doing is just creating a color lookup. It's looking just from left to right. Vertical information has no, I could make this ramp like 10 pixels tall and, oh, whoops. I really want it to be like 1,000 wide and 10 pixels tall. It's only looking from left to right. It's a little easier for us to see what's going on in the ramp if we broaden it, but darker pixels, black gets like whatever pixels are over here in the ramp. And as we get lighter and lighter, like white is given a color of green. So now my noise has a real specific color palette instead of just being like a Technicolor dream coat. So now if I pulse that, you'll see that it'll kind of inherit the color palette of the noise system that we fed it, right? So unsurprisingly, I've got ocean in my prompt. It's giving us a real oceanic looking thing. Here's a fun trick for you. Drop an LFO, chop, and make the amplitude 360. Set this to be a ramp. Okay, so it's just climbing up to 360 and going back down to 0. And then I'm going to set the frequency to 0.01. So it's just going to slowly climb all the way up to 360 and then drop back down to 0. Let's put a null here. Now I need to put in an HSV adjust. Boom. And it doesn't go into the phase of the ramp. It goes into the hue offset. Take that null and go into the hue offset of HSV adjust. And this will just loop 360 degrees through all the colors. You could add more color keys if you want, but this is just kind of a cool way. I might make a little more contrast between these colors, darken the blue. And I'm going to darken this green a bit. There we go. Okay. So now you'll see as I loop through this color treatment, it'll give me like completely different looks for my colors. I'm just going to start pulsing. So by the way, when I pulse this and I have animated content, like I could animate this noise, which I actually think I will do now. Let's go to the transform and drop an ABS time dot seconds in there, times 0.1. Okay, so whenever it gets back to generating, whenever I pop this generate pulse, it just, at that frame, it just grabs whatever it's seeing at that frame and ignores the rest of this. So it's fine if you're feeding it animated data. So now you see I get a nice like ruby red looking color palette. Now a pulse, it's going to give me some kind of orange business. It's pretty cool, right? Pulse it again. Now it's on a sort of a yellow treatment. I feel like I could get more variety in here. Maybe add a color key or two. So I get some different colors. It's good to kind of have the colors sort of match a little bit because they'll tend to work better over time. But anyway, now I've just got sort of this like self-modifying noise. I'm going to turn down the, rather turn up the period of this noise a little just to give me some bigger trends in here. And you can see what happens as I sort of narrow the color palette or fiddle with the color palette and fiddle with these noise systems. And I have variations in here between high granularity and low granularity. It just makes for much more interesting compositions. All right, let's take a look at one more. Okay, pretty cool. So now we're going to take this a step further. This is a cool installation right here. Maybe I ought to show you. Okay, let's do the back end now. The way that I set this up was to drop a couple of caches. Let's see if I can remember this. Do a couple caches. I'm gonna stick my null up there for a second. And really what I want to do is have it grab one and then grab have the next one go into the second cache, the next painting go into the second cache, and then I just want to switch back and forth between the two of them. And I wanted to do that without any Python, and I did manage to figure out a way to do it. So this just drop this chop output to a null, and you'll get a bunch of parameters from inside the ComfyTD tox, and you're going to want to just select the. Let's just select done. Okay. So every time it's done generating an image, it will pulse this done right here. Okay. So I'm going to tell it to keep generated. I'm going to go back to the ComfyTD tox and toggle on keep generating and just tell it to go. So now it's just going to, as soon as it's done with an image, it's going to pop another one. Okay. So here it goes. Just generating images. I'm cycling through colors. And I've got my two caches. Oh, whoops. Let's make it so we can see that still, just to have fun. Okay, pretty cool. Every time it's done, I want to switch from one to the other with a little fade. Okay, so I'm going to drop a math here. Oh, no. First, I'm going to drop a count. Drop a count. Goes into the count. Okay, so every time this pulses, this count is going to go up, right? Just because it's hitting, crossing the trigger threshold, which is, as long as it's somewhere between 0 and 1, it'll give you a count every time it generates an image, okay? If you go to the count and limit the count to loop min max and just tell it 0 and 1 and then reset it like this, okay? Now, every time you get a pulse here, it's just going to toggle between 0 and 1. Pretty simple, right? The count would normally be going up, but oh, I'm at 1. I got to go back down to 0. And then, so this just gives me kind of like a built-in toggle switch. I'm going to run a math out of here. And all I'm going to do is tell it to range it from 0 to 1, ranges from 1 to 0. So these two guys are opposite right here. I got two opposite 0, 1 values. And every time I get a new image, one of them changes to one way and the other one changes to the other way, okay? So these guys, I'm going to stick into the active channels of these caches, okay? So now, basically, when one is on, the other one is off. That's really the easiest, simplest way to explain this, right? These guys, one of them switches, the other one's not active. So it doesn't respond to the change of the artwork in coming out of the tox file, okay? And then I want to drop a lag. And I think, as I recall, I came off of the bottom one. And let's just put in 2 seconds for the lag and a null. And then I'm going to put a switch up here, switch top, and tell it to blend between inputs. I'm sure there's a smarter way to do this with like a lag or something, but this is the way I did it. And this is the way I did it. So let's put a null here. Let's close this. Let's do a view. Now that should just be fading between the two images. Yes. Yes, so look at this. That's a version of the installation, just a cool abstract painting, okay? But let's make it even a little cooler. Okay, I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna leave this noise system exactly the way that it is, and I'm gonna put in a circle. Okay, and the circle is going to be composite and set resolution, and I'm gonna multiply. Boom. So now I have this is what's going in, and maybe I'll just leave this open so you can kind of see it happening as it unfolds. I'll view my final output here. I'm going to keep these kind of small for now. So here's my circle. I'm going to turn down that radius a bit so that it's like, I don't know, maybe about that big. It sees the alpha as black, so that's why we're not getting much business around here. Sometimes because I'm allowing it to deviate so far from the input image, it is spreading out a little bit, but largely there's just nothing here. So now I want to give the circle a little backdrop. So I'm just going to create another noise, and I'm going to feed that noise with this, and I'm just going to tell it just the noise. This is basically just giving me the resolution. And then I'm going to drop an over in here. Okay, and that's going to go over that. Soften the circle a little bit. Yeah, good. And then this is kind of a cheap way to make stars. I mean, you may end up liking just this. This is fairly interesting. You could do a lot of things with this noise. We should animate this noise as well. Animate ABS time, caps lock, ABS time dot seconds times 0.1. Same thing. Now, this is kind of neat. Drop a threshold here, and you can... I'm just going to put an RGB key here so that we see what the same thing that Stable Diffusion sees, which is black. If you make this kind of a granular noise, and then you increase the threshold here, actually turn off the offset and down the amplitude a bit, maybe up. Oh, there we go. There's our twinkly stars. Like, this is a cheap way to get some like star backdrops. It's interesting. Oh, it might not have seen those stars yet. So maybe I'm pushing Stable Diffusion a little too hard. Should we drop this? I'm going to drop that to 0.7, which is telling it to change it less. I'd just be interested to see what happens here. Either that, or you can try, one of the things that I finally did in the end was to decrease the threshold and make the noise like a little bit bigger. And this ends up giving you could colorize this noise also. It ends up giving you some kind of interesting stuff here. I also find that when I put 3D in my prompts, it gives me more texture. Let's try like a bigger period here and kill the threshold. Anyway, there's then the one last thing that I did was to take a noise and move my circle around. So I'm going to turn off time slice. I'm just going to have two channels in here. One's going to be called TX and one's going to be called TY. The period is going to be much higher. Let's drop that into a null. And then I'm going to just drop this onto the center points of the circle. So the circle just kind of moves around. So now this is sort of what's going in and this is what's coming out. You could play with your step count and your CFG. Like if I crank up the D noise to 0.9, it'll give us some pretty interesting looks here. You know, let me open this up so we can see it in total. But anyway, that is the installation. That is the whole installation. I feel like I must have done something that looks a little different than I did coming in. But you can see that it is generating an abstract painting for you every few seconds. I think I had like maybe moon in my prompt. What do I have here? Beautiful masterpiece, 3D modern oil painting that depicts symbols of fear, strength, uncertainty, that depicts, I'm going to say depicts the moon with symbols of fear. So, okay, let's try that. The moon is a very like evocative image because there's so many images of it, and it probably has so many images of the moon in its training data that, I don't know, it just ends up adding kind of an interesting twist to the installation. I don't know, there's something kind of Star Wars-y about it now. Maybe it was better before. I think one time I also put Alien Planet in there, which gave it very interesting results. You can also put cute kittens in here and it'll make cute kittens for you. Should we do that just to prove the point? Once you have this Tox running in Touch Designer properly, you can kind of get it to draw for you whatever you want. I'm not particularly fond of cats, so I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but there you go. Got your cute kittens. I want to undo this to say my farewells. Let's see, are we gonna get done with these kittens? Oh my God, it's making me allergic just looking at this. I hope this was fun and useful for you. Remember that this is just one approach. You can try feeding it all kinds of interesting things and use Cache Tops to do full layouts with different images and have hold on to the different images and use those little images as little plugins to your Touch Designer network, or maybe you could use it to generate instances. Like, if you had a circle piece of artwork, and it could just continually generate new instances for you of things that were flying around. I often thought that would be an interesting attempt or look. Shoot me your questions. A little hard for me to keep up with all of them, but I'll try to get around to answering them. Good luck with this. I hope you have fun. Over and out.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like our YouTube content, I highly recommend you check out the Interactive and Immersive HQ Pro. The HQ Pro is the only comprehensive educational resource and community for immersive design, Touch Designer, and creative tech pros. In the HQ Pro trainings, we cover almost any topic you can think of, and we go way more in depth than we do in our YouTube tutorials. We have a private group where Matthew Reagan, myself, and our other industry veteran and pioneer teachers answer your questions every single day. If that sounds cool, click the link in the description to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more free Touch Designer and immersive content.